what a nice thing to say to somebody. Thank you, man.
It's the daily affirmation. That's what I'll do.
I like that. I'll call in every day.
Welcome to another episode of Dirty Work here on YouTube. My name is Dennis. Thank you for joining me. Today we have a very special guest who hails from out west in Canada in the wonderful province of British Columbia. He is what we like to call a wrestling brain. My friend, my compatriot, my fellow wrestling fan, Mr. Josh Custodio. Hello, Josh. Welcome to the program. Welcome to Dirty Work.
What a wonderful voice you have, Dennis. It's I know this from talking with you over time, but you do enough of these recording things. Lots of people sort of speak through their nose like me. They have annoying voices. What a treat to jump on here, having somebody in a velvety, beautiful voice saying, a very special guest. I mean, truly a treat. Great to be here, man. Thanks for the invite.
I appreciate it. Josh, today, you've been very gracious with your time, and I really appreciate you coming on and talking to me. The focus of these talks on this channel are really to sort of get into the weeds with somebody and sort of see what makes them tick, what drives them, what really makes them do what they do. So, since your home screen in life is the wonderful world of professional wrestling. Why don't you tell me what that first moment that you had that really floored you? Talk to me about your first wrestling moment that kind of blew your beautiful hair back.
It is a nice head of hair, isn't it?
It is a great set of hair.
It's going gray like a son of a gun, but you can't deny it isn't nice.
It's still there.
Okay. There will be your listenership and whoever of mine is watching this that probably have this exact same moment. Like if you were to ask them this question, this is the same answer. I was 10 years old, getting into wrestling. It's on at the house. Never watching pay-per-views. I mean, you don't even understand that cycle as a kid. And as we got older, my parents just weren't hearing it out. They were like, no, I'm not spending $40 for you to watch something. Like, I don't know. I don't even know what you're talking about. However, as I'm sure people like me remember, tuning into the Monday Night Raw, WWE's flagship show, the Monday after a pay-per-view was exciting to me because you had all this build to the pay-per-view. I didn't know what happened the night before, and I would get home and watch these highlights. So take us to 1998, and I'm tuned into Monday Night Raw, and the highlight they show is photos, stills of Mick Foley coming off the top of the cage as Undertaker throws him off. Now, I've always been somebody... I like hardcore wrestling. I like hardcore music. Like, I like extremity. And this, just seeing my hero, Mankind, fly through the air and get back up and hearing commentary be like, the Bionic Man, like, he is broken in half.
Yeah.
Like, all of these moments, it just resonated with me in a way where up to that point in my life, it was easily the coolest thing I'd ever seen. Like, I could put a thumbtack on it. It was the coolest thing I had ever seen.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's one of those moments where I got chills, and we had like one of those old school black boxes. So I watched it on pay-per-view. I watched it live, and I remember just that feeling, the feeling that is a complete combination of fear and exhilaration at the same time. Like, just
exactly right. Like, worried for someone else's well-being. There's a lot going on there.
Right.
I can't let you say the black box without... I love to talk about the damn box because you either knew about it or you didn't. You had somebody in your life who did.
Yeah.
My friend Jesse, his dad got the box, and I'll explain what it is to anybody who might not know. When I was in grade 11, so a very formative time, I'm sort of getting into weirder movies. I like wrestling, but my wrestling interest certainly isn't at its peak. And then the black box. And all it was this box that was plugged into Jesse's dad's TV.
Mm-hmm.
And it had like you'd controlled it from the manual controls on the box. Like, none of the remotes would work on it.
Right.
And it was just a black and green DOS list of pay-per-views. There was movies that had just been in theaters.
Right.
But most importantly to me, there was Pride FC, the Japanese MMA Federation.
Oh, yeah.
And Extreme Championship Wrestling. And I mean, the saying pig and shit was made for me discovering these things.
It's like all of a sudden you somebody shuts the door behind you, it's locked, and nothing but dessert is sitting there waiting for you.
Yeah, that is how it felt.
It really is. Yeah. And that was sort of like one of the moments that really kind of ignited for you, I think, a level of enthusiasm and just engorging yourself on like professional wrestling content. Now, your enthusiasm is infectious. You have a charisma about your enthusiasm, which is kind of a way that I can say it, where you can kind of see why people want to engage with you and why you're so game for engaging with people about this kind of thing. So
come on your show more. What a nice thing to say to somebody. Thank you, man.
It's the daily affirmation. That's what I'll do.
I like that. I'll call in every day.
So I was just wondering, has this always been, was little Josh with little baby beard, was little Josh as prone to enthusiasm as adult Josh is currently?
Well, I was hairy very young. I was one of those, like, in high school, early puberty. I was very young looking, and then came the beard and gray hair. Like, I never got to be normal looking. I was, like, very young looking and then ancient. Yes, I have always been like this. I've always been, like, a classic nerd, I suppose. Like, I'm interested in subcultures because they attract other people that are as hardcore about their interests as I am. I like talking about the things that I like as much as I like the thing. And sometimes people have a hard time. They don't believe me, maybe. I like content about content as much as the content itself in many cases. Now, that isn't that there aren't movies or shows that blow me away, but my dad has brought up before. I think everybody remembers those classic Lord of the Rings, that initial box set of DVDs.
Yeah.
Extended version. Beautiful, beautiful DVDs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Those had on them for each the Fellowship of the Ring, the Two Towers, and Return of the King, a making of DVD on them. And I love those Lord of the Rings movies, but I was swept away by the making of. I hadn't had the fourth wall broken to such a massive degree before. Like, I was going to get into the Howard Stern show and the Larry Sanders show and things that played in that gray zone in ways that I would grow to learn that I'm very interested in. But these Lord of the Rings behind the scenes DVDs, I was just taken with. So to answer your question, yeah, I think that whatever will attract the hardcore discourse is I'm going to be chasing.
Definitely. I mean, and I'm no stranger to DVD commentary and deep dives into content myself. At another point in time, we were talking Fight Club, one of my favorite movies of all time. There were like 4 DVD commentaries on the special edition that came in its a beautiful sort of like cardboard sleeve that looked like the Paper Street Soap Company kind of like packaging. Yeah, and there was like one commentary with Fincher, one commentary with the producer, and I think the screenwriter. One with I think Edward Norton and Brad Pitt, and like little jump-ins from Helena Bonham Carter. And I watched all of them because I had seen that movie so many times. And after a while, it's like you want to hear the remixes of the songs, you know?
Can you imagine making that decision at whoever's issuing the Fight Club DVDs and Blu-rays? Whoever went to the table was like, but this guy also wants a commentary track and he's got something very good to say. Somebody must have been like, we don't need 4, man. Like, no one's going to listen to this. And then there's
for the love of God.
At home, he's like, 1, 2, 3, and 4 down the hatch. I love
That's it. Right. We're getting all the sweaties with this one.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. The sweaties.
Yeah. Let's talk about Wrestling Brain. All right. So the mothership of Wrestling Brain, I would argue, is the Twitch channel. And from there, I'd actually love to kind of talk about the genesis of kind of the, let's call it Wrestling Brain Prime. And then we'll talk kind of like about all of the layers that kind of unfolded on top of that.
So you're absolutely right that the mothership is the Twitch channel. And everything I'm about to say now, Wrestling Brain hardly existed in the form that it started. Like, the starting version of Wrestling Brain that I did was destined to be unsuccessful. My prior wrestling podcast, Top Marks, had ended, and I was eager to continue talking about wrestling. I hadn't done it in a couple months, but the opposite of eager to watch any more WWE. I had spent the last 3 years watching Monday Night Raw on Monday, SmackDown Tuesday, NXT Wednesday, and then recording Wednesday night. Yeah. Which is like, even if the product was good, no one could enjoy, 6 hours of content to do a podcast that under 100 people are listening to. Shout out to those, though, who are still with me to this day. You mean the world to me. So then that ends, and I realize I only really, at that point in time, there is no AEW. I only really want to talk about GCW and New Japan Pro Wrestling. That's a round that I want to talk about. So I just started Patreon, patreon.com/J0SHC, and I start 2 shows on there. Wrestling Brain for my pro wrestling content, and MMA Shithead for my MMA content. Now, I learned quickly, 0 people are interested in my MMA takes or opinions, and the wrestling stuff was just getting listened to and interacted with in a way that no one was doing for the MMA content. So I was like, okay, I'll just do more wrestling. So I was just doing endless solo shows, reviews of what was happening. They covered the whole New Japan Cup, the whole G1, just solo episode. Not very interesting content, just like me talking about wrestling I'm watching, which is not, it's okay, but it's not worth $5 a month. And then, out of nowhere, an angel came to save me. My DMs on Twitter one day, I get the little, there pops up that little red notification that we all love. And it's Canadian media superstar, the Zoobs. Now, people think I'm joking when I'm talking. People think, oh, Josh and Zoobs, they're co-hosts now. They think of us as a pair. Not the case. It was not originally the case. I had met Zoobs and was a fan of him. Like, people I know who know real sports. I don't know team sports at all, right? Besides, I'm a Whitecap season ticket holder, and I still barely know anything about soccer.
Yeah.
I'm sitting there with this Wrestling Brain thing that's going, I'm enjoying it, and it's satiating what I'm looking for. But the Zoobs, who I am starstruck by, reaches into my DMs and is like, hey man, I've got some free time. I know your wrestling thing had ended. He had been a guest on the old show.
Yeah.
Would you be interested in watching AEW Dark together and sort of commenting on it? And when a guy that you look up to so much, like the Zoobs, I mean, it's the easiest yes imaginable. It's like, what are you talking? Like, do you want me? Yeah, of course. Like I can't stress how much more popular Zoobs was than and is. But at the time, that gap was. It'd be tough to measure. Like it'd be like I'm struggling to think of an analogy, but he reached down and was like, "Here we go." And so we did it on twitch.tv/ I think it's the Zoobs or just Zoobs. I can't remember.
Yeah.
But then we just I don't know if you know Sick Nick East, but he reached out to us.
Mm-hmm.
He was doing his Twitch channel. And he was like, I actually think you guys have something here. Like you should make a channel just for talking about wrestling. And yeah, so those two really took the bull by the horns. My gear on the channel, thankfully, to everybody's benefit, has really just been trusting in the smart guys. And when it comes time to talk about wrestling, like I'm ready to go. But it was nothing. And then Zoobs entered. Nick put his fine touches on it. And now we brought in Matt, who is like, put this coat of paint on everything that it's like, Matt has brought, like, it feels complete now. It's like, oh yeah, the backdrop behind me, the blue, yellow, pink, it jives with the music. It all feels like one thing. So
definitely
the genesis of it is just me being like, and then Nagata and Suzuki had a match in front of an empty arena. It was fine. There was a forearm exchange. And now is one of the big joys of my life.
So Matt, you were talking about is Matt Prince, who is a musician and sound artist and also does voiceover work. I know his work very well from the weekly Wrestling Brains A Double Dudes show and other assorted programs on the Twitch. We'll get into that. The Zoobs is Andrew Zuber, for anybody who doesn't know.
What?
And some people don't know who these.
I didn't know that till just you're telling me.
I'm telling you.
Huh?
It's not the no.
Oh my God.
It's also like Larson's first name is not and.
That's right.
It is in kayfabe, but it isn't. Anyway, so all of these folks take the raw sort of like energy that you provide and sort of gave it, what would you say, some direction, some focus maybe?
I think you've nailed it. Yeah, they took whatever small nugget I had going. We're like, let's funnel this. And I had a seed that they were like, this isn't even in a garden, dude. Like it wasn't even it wasn't waiting for watering. It was sitting on the shelf at Home Depot. But yes, I'd say it's a really good way of saying it.
Yeah. And so from this Twitch channel, where basically, especially during the pandemic, where people were kind of looking for ways to connect. And I mean, full disclosure, I think it was during the first full year of pandemic lockdown life in 2021, where I found Wrestling Brain.
That's great.
Yeah. And because I just looked and my 22nd month of subscription just passed. So like literally, so I'm almost 2 years. In April, it'll be 2 years. So
that's amazing because I'm just over 2 years. Like we have people who've been subscribed to the channel longer than me. It sort of blows me away to think that we've even been doing it that long. Like I'm sure you know this. You've had your shows, and even with bands, weekly rehearsal or a weekly show just sort of morphs into your life at some point.
Yeah.
It's like, oh yeah, my Wednesday nights have been this. When you say it's like 2.5 years of that, it's like, oh my goodness, what am I doing?
Yeah.
But it brings me so much joy, man. I'm deeply thankful for this channel.
Yeah. No, definitely. And so essentially your Discord server is what serves as, let's say, the DVD commentary for Wrestling Brain proper. Is that also a good analogy?
I would say you were just Mr. Analogy. I'm counting 3 for 3 on the home runs here. Yeah, I would say that's exactly right. Maybe
that's my English degree talking.
There you go. I would say my Discord houses some of the chaos as well. It's it's a DVD commentary, but maybe done by David Fincher and a guy on peyote beside him.
Gotta love it. You really gotta love it. So from this, your process, would you say it's more deliberate planning? And what I mean by your process is we're also going to talk about, because you have like themed months on your Discord as well, and we'll definitely talk about that as well. But with these things that you have in the past and in the current sort of like roster of topics, do you deliberately plan these out, or is this like one night you have an idea and then you just kind of go nuts with the idea?
Man, I wish it was more the latter. I think I don't present as organized or particularly planned out, but the opposite is true. I think if you were to ask Matt and Zooms, they'd be like, Josh is weirdly like scheduled and to the minute. No, I have the notebook. Everything in my life is in these books. I write pages and pages of. I don't have a lot of ideas, man. I'm not an especially smart guy. So it's when I have one that I feel a real pressure to get the most out of my few good ideas. And so no, there's I would say probably more planning, even for the Wednesday and Saturday shows. I think probably more planning than people would guess just to like look or interact with me.
It's interesting that you do present. I'm not saying you present as chaotic. That's not a fair way, or it's not a fair assessment. Like I think it's sort of reductive, but you do present as you present as spontaneous and enthusiastic, right? And maybe it's the combination of those sort of like when you react very strongly. Like it's not something that you would associate with somebody who's more of a careful planner of things. So I mean, kudos to you for presenting differently than you actually are, because that's usually a double threat.
I wish I'm inspired by that. I'm very like artist head, right? Like who knows if this is even a thing, talking about Wrestling Brain, but I find inspiration in Tom Waits being like, I'm just sitting at the table and the ghost of the idea comes in me and lives on. I'm like, I want that to happen to me, but it never does. My brain's made of a brick. But I appreciate that. I do present one way and act another.
Well, as Tom Waits said, I'd rather have a bottle in front of me than a frontal lobotomy. So there you go.
Never said it better.
Wrestling Brain sort of presents as, to your point, it's content about the appreciation of content, in a sense, right? Like, so essentially you are presenting an appreciation and enthusiasm and very, very passionate takes on the world of professional wrestling. Where do you sit in terms of like your differentiation or even your opinions of the more journalistic content that's out there? I mean, do you, and I mean, I'm not asking you to put anyone on blast or anything, but like, where do you stand on folks like Fightful or Wrestling Observer or Wrestling Inc. or anything like that? Are they something that you feel are a worthwhile sort of thing, or do you think the fandom should stand on its own?
What a great question. I feel like I'm going to speak in specifics because I would almost draw a line between Dave Meltzer and Fightful a little bit, at least in my mind. Because I would say I've almost come around on Meltzer. Like when I was growing up in wrestling, pre-internet things were just so different, and people remember. But you wanted wrestling information, you better hope Dave Meltzer's speaking about it. Wrestling and general discourse is just so different now with multiple information sources. I feel like people are kind of quick now to throw out Dave Meltzer, whereas his mind for the history of this game despite his broadcasting limitations, are something that I really value. And he's equally as knowledgeable on the MMA side. You're talking about a guy who was at UFC 1, has been just the context that this guy holds for pro wrestling, both Japanese and Western.
Yeah.
He has my respect. I think people's opinions of Dave Meltzer are largely framed by worse sites reframing what he says, chopping it all up. And because he is such a tangential speaker, he's just so primed to be plucked. In terms of the Fightfuls and, pro wrestling journalism sides, it's not for me. I'm interested in the behind the scenes working, but people taking it deeply serious, like, could you do journalism about Days of Our Lives? Is there Survivor journalism? Like, that's how I view these things. Like, AEW Dynamite is my favorite TV show. Yeah. It's not, the war in Ukraine. We're talking about fake fighting. So I never want to be one of these people who's like caught up in the, oh my goodness, can you believe this rating? And this Sean Ross Sapp says it might go this way. In the same breath, there are nuggets of the inner workings that are deeply interesting to me. So it's hard to have rules about, but I do find people who are like, I'm a pro wrestling journalist, innately sort of cornball.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree with that as well. I mean, like, and even them, honestly, I don't think Fightful consider themselves journalism either. Like, and I think that's, and to your point earlier with Dave Meltzer, like, I think that a lot of the perceptions of Fightful are what are driving a lot of people's opinions about Fightful.
Sure, that's true.
I happen to like Fightful. Like, again, full disclosure, I pay the $5 a month or $7.50 Canadian just to have the nuggets of information and the extra content. It's fine.
And I am a hypocrite if nothing else. To be clear, I don't give the Fightful the $5, but when your man Sean Ross Sapp is like, Fightful select big news in a couple minutes, I do go into my Discord and go, all right, who's got what he's saying? However, I do find very often it's like
crowdsourcing.
Nothing. That's what he's saying. He's saying not a thing.
Yeah. No, and for sure. It's like they're trading in rumors, but I mean, I think putting it onto a pedestal from a journalistic standpoint, I put journalistic even in quotes when I kind of made a note of it, because to your point, yes, it's not real life. This is staged entertainment that happens to be very dangerous and requires a high level of skill to do. This is part of what I love about it. And why don't we go back into the wrestling side of things? And it's a very basic question, but I mean, it's between two different names, but I'm going to guess that your favorite wrestler is either Mick Foley or Hiroshi Tanahashi. So I'm guessing
you nailed two of my top three. I would probably put Mick Foley still. It's tough with Mick Foley because I can't separate the guy from the work, because at this point so many of my heroes have let me down and have revealed themselves to be people of ill intent, and I don't need my wrestlers to be my heroes. Like, I suspect CM Punk, one of my favorite wrestlers of all time, would hate me, not enjoy spending time with me whatsoever. However, in this, these guys are way more right wing than maybe I initially thought and verbose about it. Here's Mick Foley out here for rain, mowing lawns, and, going to his sick friends and trying to help them. Like, there's this consistency with the guy where I feel like I've grown up with him, and he is sort of the guy that, no, don't get me wrong, I'm sure if you follow him around the camera, he's not a perfect human being, but he has never let me down in those ways. So it's hard for me to remove that. But the ace of the universe, Hiroshi Tanahashi, the once in a century talent, is I could talk for an hour. I just find when he is wrestling, I'm more captivated by him than most wrestlers. And he builds stakes when beat down in a way that I don't really think you can fake. I think you kind of just have to have this thing in your gut that you can tap into in moments. Like, it's hard to put words to. I've just had so many moments with the ace where it's like, oh, again, right, of course. You consider, and I'm not going to go on for Hiroshi Tanahashi forever, but consider the New Japan dads that should be his, class. Like, he's just so far ahead of them and in better shape and still going and putting on bangers. And the Forbidden Door main event, like, here is Forbidden Door. What are we going to main event with? Somebody get the ace out. Yeah. It's incredible.
Yeah, he's always been like in that situation last year, he was a break glass kind of talent, right? He basically was he was the only one that wasn't hurt on either side or already otherwise engaged in a story, and it made for a perfect story. It really did.
100%.
It was easy to pivot even, between all of that.
I'll never forget, New Japan went to Nashville when one of my friends was visiting there. So we went to the New Japan show in Nashville. And it didn't have a ton of the Japanese talent on it, as you would imagine. At the time, it was Alex Zane, Leo Rush, like whoever they were running
Sure.
here largely out of the dojo. I think Ishii.
Mhm.
However, they did fly over Hiroshi Tanahashi. And my friend sent me a picture of these two ladies crying when the ace entered. And he's like, what is going on? Who is this guy? And I was like, I don't even know how to explain it. Just sit back. And he just texted me back after. He's like, I completely get it.
Oh my God. Just making
He is
two
the
ladies
ace.
in Nashville weepy. That's great. That's
I
awesome.
love it.
That's a great one. You know, like this turns into a almost risking a larger sort of topic of conversation. But you touched on it when talking about Mick Foley. The delineation between your love of a performer and your love of a person who is a performer, or your love of the character that they portray. You know, and Mick Foley probably was the one that he sort of ended up embodying and turning all of those characters that he had created, including himself as a character, into a part of the larger lexicon of him as a human being. And then sort of like after he cashed out of pro wrestling, he knew that he wanted to sort of like put his energies into philanthropy and like rain.org and the like. So I don't want to necessarily turn this into an open debate about one Charles Montgomery Punk. I mean, you know what I mean.
You know,
But-
I'd be happy to though.
Yeah, no, and the thing is, I would love to get your take on this stuff too, because I've got a few sort of like different like theories and opinions and stuff, and we can talk about it because in the larger context of our appreciation for pro wrestling, it does hold a little bit of like a subject matter relevancy. So, not to get into the bare bones of all of the fallout from
Sure.
from September, but essentially, you alluded earlier that he's one of your top, favorite wrestlers of all time.
He'd be number
CM
three.
Punk.
It'd be Ace Foley and Punk.
Ace Foley and Punk. Okay, so there's definitely a period where you can see where all that stuff was starting to fall out, where you could see the CM Punk hat being kind of removed from one's head and the Phil Brooks hat very firmly being kind of like stapled to his cranium. And then he just kind of went into berserker mode. Now, I know that in sort of future episodes of Wrestling Brain, there's been kind of a lamentation around the fact that we don't have CM Punk on our screens any longer.
Yeah.
And yet, you never know. You never know. But did that moment for you change anything in your perception of him as a performer based on his conduct as a person at that very moment?
No. And only because I grew up as a giant Bret Hart fan. The moral asshole is an archetype I can get behind. Henry Rollins, Bret Hart. I'm struggling to think of other people who fall under this trope, but there's plenty out there where it's like they are prickly, but you would let them watch your kids. And
that's a great way to put it.
I've said this on our show before, but if you were to follow every wrestler around with a hidden camera for 24/7, okay, for the course of a year, let's say you had all this data, I believe CM Punk is one at the end that you would say, I'd still let this guy watch my kids. Like, you wouldn't have him on camera doing it. And I wouldn't say that about most wrestlers. So is he an asshole? Is he too sensitive? I mean, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
But I have a heart for the people who take this stuff too seriously. I appreciate that in them.
Yeah.
I hate the Kevin Nash, get out there and, you do the least, you get the most money. I want the CM Punk, like, let's deliver the best high-octane, meaningful pro wrestling to the people that we can, so much so that it pisses them off when other people aren't on board with it. This has been consistent with him throughout his career, but I feel like it's me he's fighting for in that specific way. I don't love, did he read into the Hangman comment and, take an inch and make it a mile? Absolutely. Do I understand being attached to somebody that you no longer like and people keep bringing it up and they're now blaming what's happening to him on you? I don't have it to that high of a degree, but I think people know, like, I do have a small sphere of that. I understand being frustrated where it's like, I actually don't have anything to do with that guy, and I haven't for years. And so if you could stop relating us together, I'd really appreciate it, because I'm actually here doing this giant thing, and meanwhile my coworkers are the ones telling people that I'm getting them out of here. Like, I understand post a dog or not a dog collar match, but a intense match.
Yeah.
You're exhausted, you're post adrenaline, and you're hearing this stuff. Like, yeah, it's not that hard for me to get there, to be honest. I wouldn't have chose for him to act that way, but it's not some sort of moral crossing for me.
No, for sure. And I think once the performer hat was firmly removed from his head, there was no stopping the way that he was going to, because it was almost like the performer stayed, but the character left, which was kind of a weird thing to watch, like in to watch it live. And AEW's own flub in production made everyone sound like they were, everyone sounded like this. So like, like I ended up watching the Denise Salcedo version of that is the perfect version of that.
Yeah,
and
the clean feed.
Maybe I see some of the fandom out there, and I hate to be ageist about this stuff, but I'm in my 40s, and my wrestling fandom, I've been a fan of the Graps since I was about 7. So
your whole life. My
whole life going into my developing years, my teenage years, and finally into my adult years, quote unquote. And I guess, like I'm just about his age. I'm maybe a year or two older than he is. And I kind of saw it from almost from a generational standpoint too. And the Bret Hart nod is something that I've had a lot of thought about, like a lot of thoughts about. And I guess I was disappointed that, because I work in a corporate job, and the reason I say this is because he was at work at the time. And I run with a rule that in life, you're 90% you and you're 10% business. And in business, you're 90% business and 10% you. Add just as enough personality, but keep, turn down the honesty to the point where you can still say something, you can still craft something. This is a master of wordsmithery and promos. Like him going off, I understand the emotion behind it. But I think it was, to your point, the adrenaline and all that stuff was definitely there. But I think I was disappointed because this was somebody who was given the keys to the castle and he threw them away. And
I don't fully agree with that, because you're right. He is at work and he is cutting this promo that is too strong. However, he is not an executive vice president of the company.
He is not.
He is at work. He says all
he is
this.
talent.
He says, come talk to me. You're talking about a corporate environment. If I'm in a corporate environment and I'm an executive vice president and there's 3 of us and my employee seems fucking steam, it does not seem like a good idea. And frankly, I think it is on the boss's responsibility there to not 3 bosses going back, if you want to put it within the framework of a job. I don't know that that's the way you're going to get any sort of desired result.
Fair enough. Yeah, no, that's fair enough.
But it's wrestling. Omega is another guy I would lump it, that takes this too seriously in a way that I really like.
I agree with that too. Like, I do like the fact that, in one breath, he's speaking about it like he's learning how to play the violin or make sushi or something. But then on the other end, he's making basically like freshman jokes, at people's expense. And that's the thing. It's like, there's got to be a line, and the personality type that is attracted to pro wrestling and the personality type that's attracted to becoming a pro wrestler is such a cocktail of you have to be intelligent. You have to be, not all of them have been, but you have to be to be really prime successful at professional wrestling. You have to be intelligent. You have to be naturally gifted athletically to an extent. You have to be savvy to the public world, and you have to be savvy to your role in that public world. So all of that to say that a lot of people that have had that it factor, it's usually a combination of all of those things: ability in the ring, athleticism, the ability to talk, the ability to think, the ability to sell yourself and your character to the outside world. All of those things have to be present.
100% agree.
Yeah. And I guess when you get to the point where your humanity kind of overrides, and should, because sometimes it has to. When your humanity overrides your job, sometimes you do have to blow the whistle, and I agree, because at that very moment, and I think that maybe a call should have been made that let's not put Phil on the microphone.
Tony's sitting right there. Too.
Let's take a beat.
I wonder how much Tony's thought about that night. He's like, should I have been like, hey man, just eat that muffin. You had a great match. I don't know. It's well, I am thankful that he's coming back though. Let's put that on the record. I cannot wait for the second
not a report, by the way, everybody. Not a report. This isn't a news site. And this is supposed to be
a pro wrestling journalist. I'm reporting. CM Punk is coming back.
All my favorite pro wrestling journalists have those types of shirts on. Those are mine.
That's right. They probably do.
Yeah. I almost wanted to. I almost want to sort of pivot this over to. So there's a few segments on Wrestling Brain, specifically AEW Dudes, the post AEW Dynamite show that's every Wednesday after Dynamite. So there's usually a prompt. So there's one prompt that I sort of just thought up. I'm not sure if any are going to pop up after this, but this is a prompt that's about the wrestling world as a whole. And
I love this. Okay, great.
So we're going to play a little game of Keep It or Kick It.
Fantastic.
Josh, for the people playing at home, would you like to remind them the rules of Keep It or Kick It?
Keep It or Kick It, of course, a game where Dennis is going to give me a prompt from his wrestling brain at large, and I and the Brainiacs in the chat, or whoever's watching, will have to, if they want to keep that prompt, which means they like it, they love it, they want some more of it, or they want to kick that prompt, which means they hate it, despise it, and never want to see it again. Dennis, I now understand the rules of Keep It or Kick It.
Thank you very much for explaining it to my audience. I appreciate it. So this is a very ultimate Keep It or Kick It. This statement: the Khans, father and son, buying WWE, splitting it up into territories, and resetting the clock to the 1970s. Josh, keep it or kick it?
I don't know if they've invented the language for a big enough keep, Dennis. This might be something. We might need to invent a new game here. I mean, if you could tell me Tony Khan's going to run Dynamite as the New York and run New York as the territory, yes, enthusiasm abound. Give one territory to Gabe Sapolsky. Yes, keep.
Excellent. I just
where would you be on that?
Oh, I'd be a mega keep. This, by the way, the idea of these prompts is that Josh usually comes up with a prompt that will try to divide the audience as much as possible to spark the debate. I just thought of this as being like aspirationally. I was thinking, because the whole lexicon of modern pro wrestling in the last 50 years has been essentially a byproduct of when all of these different territories were bought up by one conglomerate, and then it rolled like a snowball toward the destruction of the independents. And then the independents rose from its own set of sort of like corners of the world. And from that, you ended up having, 4 years ago, All Elite Wrestling finally rose from all of those sort of mutations and became what they were. But they have money. And I thought, if you're really going to fantasy play this out, yes, I know that they're probably going to sell it to somebody for a lot more money, and they'd freeze any idea of the Khans buying it, but they have the money, And if you really wanted to, to do some good in the world of professional wrestling, if you really wanted to maybe have a do-over, even of the territory system, like take out the knives and the guns and all of the ill stuff, give them some insurance, like all the good stuff, like these people are risking their lives for our entertainment. And I happen to believe that there's a market out there for it. Make it regional.
Yeah, I am your man to sell this to. I am all in on this plan. And it does get forgotten that the Khans are worth more than the McMahons, like by metric.
Yeah, absolutely. That was. Thank you very much for indulging me. I didn't want to blow up, the double dude spot too much. I just wanted to sort of talk about that one.
Not at all. Listen, I might have been the first person to say the words "keep it or kick it," but like a buy or sell segment on a show, take no ownership over that. We could do it anywhere.
Oh, absolutely. Wrestling Brain and AEW Dudes is something that it seems to be something in perpetuity for you. But it does beg the question, where do you see Wrestling Brain kind of growing or changing into in the next few years? Not that I'm going to ask for your trade secrets, but really, like, what would you like to see more of out of your own product that you want to aspirationally talk about?
Yeah, I have dreams for this thing, man. Very, very specific dreams. I would like us to have a Ring of Honor presence on the channel that is equivalent to the AEW portion. So the Ring of Honor TV having a show that is, I'm going to say, as popular as AEW Dudes. I'm just struggling. AEW as the same, getting to the same level where AEW Dudes is now. On top of that, I would long term like to have 5 days of content on the channel. I want Wrestling Brain to be the place where if you are at home wanting to hear wrestling or maybe even combat sports in general discussion, you can tune in 5 nights a week and you will see it. Those are the long term plans. But the truth is, man, I'll be doing this forever. It could become half as popular as it is now, and I'll still be there doing it. I had a couple listeners say they find solace in this. So I'll say I'll never stop. I love talking about this stuff. Dynamite could go to hell. I will find something else to talk about. We might retreat back behind the paywall. But in terms of, there are long-term goals, but there's no, it's already, like, I was so willing to do it when it was to 30 people behind a paywall.
Sure.
That it's, I'm very eager. I don't know if it's I don't think it's an ego thing, but maybe it is. Like, whatever it is, I feel like I want to be talking about pro wrestling. It'll go forever. Wrestling Brain will never stop.
Yeah, it's a well. I mean, like, honestly, it's a passion project. It's and not even a project. Like, the word project is almost too reductive in this framing, but it's a passion that you have, and this is, takes us back almost full circle to the purpose of this interview. Because that's sort of that's the juice from this fruit for me. My passion is to talk to people and get to know the way they tick. I love conversation. I'm one of the reasons that I love Wrestling Brain much is because I see this amazingly intelligent and well thought out, and sometimes well thought out on the fly, which is hard, conversation about something that I've been watching for almost 40 years of my life. And
that means a lot.
Yeah, no, and seriously, like, I actually wore something that was my gateway into.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I basically, this is the Church of Friendos.
In the ways of the Church of Joshi shirt in the style of Guns N' Roses.
No, it's the Church. Here, I'll get up for a quick second.
Here we go. Church of Friendos.
It's the Church of Friendos.
I love that shirt.
Which is the Church of Joshi on Twitch with the Friendos we know as Going in Raw, Steven Larson. Steven Larson, who I've been riding with them for 8 years, 9 years, like since their inception in 2014. Amazing. And it would just, it was watching them. I'd usually just watch them on YouTube. The pandemic changed their paradigm a little bit. They started doing more live streaming on Twitch, and Twitch was brand new to me in like 2020, 2021, brand new. I mean, like, dude, I'm Gen X. I mean, like, Twitch is not my, like, I am too old gray for myself to like go on to Twitch and like, hey, fellow kids, how like the Steve Buscemi.
Yeah, whoa, this is Fortnite? Okay, great. Yeah.
Oh, wow, what's this? Are you guys playing Animal Crossing? Or, like, so I'm like, old guy. But Steven Larson,
I have brought a lot of aging hipsters to the Twitch platform. There's no getting around it. I just have.
Exhibit A.
Because I know it because I didn't use Twitch at all. This is funny and maybe a little tangential, but when Sick Nick was on the channel, he had a show called The Rank Down where he would rank things in the wrestling world.
Yeah.
And I would put it on my TV has a Twitch app, and I would put it on my TV and watch Nick do his show. And I was like, oh my God. Like, and this is when I was doing a show, but something about watching Nick do it, like, clicked it in for me. I was like, this is awesome. Like, I wish when I knew that there were channels, like, if I could find an MMA channel like Wrestling Brain, I would lose it. I'm sure it's out there, but I would love to, like, I don't know, something clicked for me seeing it, because I was the same as you. Before streaming, I don't even think I'd ever been to the website.
No, exactly, exactly. And the thing is that it was them rating you. Like it was them rating you and the friendos, and I'm like, oh look, these guys are from Canada, and it was just that was like one thing, and then I stuck around for the whole time. I think I started following you guys immediately, and within probably about a month, like maybe the next few weeks, I was all in. I was watching you guys after Dynamite every night, and that was 2 years ago.
That's so nice of you to say, and really does mean a lot. And I appreciate you bringing up Steven Larson, because this is true for Larson too, by being part of the platform. But Steve in particular has been immensely gracious with our channel. Like, you don't have to be sharing of your audience or your opinions. Zoobs and Steve, I don't think as much. We've sort of settled in. But Steve was giving Zoobs lots of insight for our channel and some ideas, and yeah, we owe. There's no question that like you're an example of it, but there are others that have certainly found us through Stephen Larson.
Yeah, no, definitely. And like, so it's through channels like Going in Raw and Church of Joshi and Wrestling Brain that, if I'm being honest, this is what sort of emboldened me to finally just draw my line in the sand and say, all right, I want in. I want to make some stuff. I want to make some stuff. I want to make some content where I'm talking to people that I love talking to. And and this is for me, like, honestly, I'm so grateful that you decided to so quickly respond and throw your hat in with me.
It tells you everything about how much I have going on, man. More than happy to anytime. I love this stuff. I love talking to people about wrestling, about anything.
Yeah.
I'm like you. When you said I love conversation, I relate to that. I love sitting over a meal and chatting with somebody. It's one of my favorite things to do.
Honestly, if it weren't for conversation, why would we even have friends?
Like, you're damn right. You're absolutely right on that.
I want to give you your opportunity to sort of like just talk about the things you've got going on. And we'll...
Here's my greedy plug.
There you go.
Patreon.com/J0SHC, what Dennis is referring to there. That is my Patreon. That is where all my solo series of wrestling content goes down. So this month, it's Shootopia. It's my series where I watch shoot interviews with guests. Right now, the Row episode where we watch a Kevin Nash shoot, as well as the Dylan Gott episode where we watch a Jim Cornette shooter out. There's 2 more to come. Last month, I did Howard Stern month, where we watched the big-time superstars on the Howard Stern show, commented on those. Tons of solo stuff. But before you pay me a dime, go check out twitch.tv/wrestlingbrain. Give it a check us out Wednesday nights after Dynamite. Saturday mornings, Matt Prince and I do pro wrestling's only daytime late night talk show. It's called Ground Floor Zero. It's not about 9/11. Come check out one of those. Follow me on Twitter, J0SHC, and I'll bug you about my projects on there.
We're gonna throw all that stuff onto the screen with lovely graphics and moving images and whatever. We're gonna just be me doing this. Now, eh? Yeah, apparently they got images moving now on screens. It's crazy. It's like a science fiction movie out there.
Never thought Back to the Future would be real, but here we are.
You mentioned the Jim Cornette side of things. I actually have made fun of my brother for sort of listening to some of the Cornette content out there because you mentioned this about Meltzer too, and not to double back too much, but Jim Cornette is probably one of those sort of Batman-esque things where you live to be the hero or you live long enough to be the villain, and his own like honestly his own hubris of being a quote unquote lightning rod for for controversial topics and stuff like that. There's a for men in his position, there is definitely that risk of almost like forgetting that the camera's on, or for, and it's funny too, because like his fall it got steep real fast, like
no question.
Yeah.
What was it on NWA that he made that rape commentary?
Very, very, incredibly
it was like just
racist.
Flatly, obviously racist, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm so thankful that you are also a long-term wrestling fan. You brought up the hero-villain dichotomy with him, because to me, growing up, he was the only left-wing guy in wrestling.
Yeah, he was.
He was spouting off about George Bush being an idiot, and was like, this was who the guy. Everyone in wrestling is right wing for Jim Cornette, who is from Kentucky. Like, this is my encountering with Jim Cornette. And now, listen, I'm not making excuses for him. I wouldn't listen to his content. I think you say something racist like that, and you don't come out and say anything besides, folks, I talked for 7 hours. I am so regretful of saying that. I was trying to do one thing, I did another. I couldn't regret this anymore. you do that. Okay, you talk a lot. You can, if you fuck up a sentence, I understand that. But he didn't. He did people are too sensitive, which is frustrating because you think of that ilk of the wrestling talking heads now who people tune into: Bischoff, Russo, Cornette. Like, Cornette is somebody with at least a track record of success in pro wrestling whose ideas bear out. Like, who are you listening to Eric Bischoff and Vince Russo about wrestling in 2023? Like, we know. We know they don't know it. It's done. Nothing to be garnered from these guys, at least with Jim Cornette, even though his fans are nut bars. Like, and I think that's important. I like bands who have cool fans. I'm only interested in doing Wrestling Brain to people that I think I would get along with to some degree. If you're some nut bar right winger, where I'm not interested in having you. And so to have him not abandon ship on that, but it's like, oh man, I'm here defending you because people sort of think you're this crotchety old guy, and now you do this. It's disappointing, man.
Because I got into doing this kind of at a later stage in my life, you look at even the paradigms beyond wrestling. Eventually people will say stuff for the money as opposed to for where their heart is, and you don't know where the line is. So like Joe Rogan, is a great example of this.
Sure.
And the thing is, I'm not even trying to show these divisions. It's just that I've noticed that once somebody in that position gets money and influence from that position, it starts to compromise your values to extent. And I mean, I don't purport to think that I'm going to reach any heights of fame or anything from what I do. But I do think that you have to always go back to the well for fresh perspective. Doing college radio for 12 years always had me speaking to people who were in their early 20s as I was getting older, which definitely helps you sort of understand the way the world is changing and gives you a little bit.
I have two sisters who are teenagers, and I feel like it does everything to inform where the world's going. Yeah. In a good way, for the record. I'm not one of these, the kids are always on their phones and nightmare people.
No, exactly, because you can't necessarily reduce it. So I guess if I'm going to say a PSA for any of this, that anybody who is in the business of creating content with words, I would encourage you to do some volunteering, and I would encourage you to do some community-based work, because you have to know what the ground floor is like. You can't just sit in your tower and just spout out words and hope that it just makes you money.
I think to people who, I think there's a lot of people who could use to understand that ground floor a little better. Myself included to some degree, but I'm more in touch with it than a swath of people behind these mics, I guarantee it.
Josh, I wanted to say once again, thank you very much for your time, your generosity and spirit, and above all, thank you for being a wonderful new friend in the world in this world and the world at large.
We got on really nice in person, didn't we?
Yep.
We're wrapping up here, but we went for burgers and was it before Rampage or before No,
it was before Rampage. Yeah, it was before Rampage.
Before Rampage, and I thought we had a really nice time.
Yeah, it was great.
Our two social circles sort of melded in nice ways. Yeah, the burger was killer. Yeah,
the burger was killer.
Thank you for being my friend as well.
Yeah, no, really appreciate it. So we'll definitely keep the lines of communication open. You're
back anytime.
You're great. You're doing great work. Much love to you and also to Zoobs and all folks that you work with on a regular basis, putting out this great content and opening up the world to Wrestling Brain. Because Josh,
more and more people are saying Wrestling Brain, and if you are those people, I am insisting you follow Dennis's channel, you hit the bell. You do all the. How nice was this conversation? I loved it. The man's pouring nice things out about the channel. If you are here for me, the least you could do is follow. But I forget what it is on YouTube. Follow or subscribe.
It's subscribe. It's subscribe for YouTube.
Hit subscribe, and I insist, Dennis. It was a real treat. I'll come back anytime.
Excellent. This has been another wonderful edition of Dirty Work. Josh Custodio. Keep on Wrestling Brain.
Love and energy.
Love and energy, man. All right. Take care.